Chapter 1. The night sky burned. Crimson streaks of fire tore through the atmosphere, each one heralding an alien drop pod slamming into the city below. San Francisco, a city of lights and progress, now lay draped in a choking haze of smoke. Buildings crumbled under relentless barges from Asleel warcraft, their biomechanical forms glinting in the flames. Amidst the chaos, Captain Daniel Reyes crouched behind the rusted remains of a school bus, his breath ragged and shallow. Status, he barked into his wrist communicator, the device crackling with static. "Evac's 2 clicks out, but we've got civvies pinned in Sector 7, came the reply. It was Corporal Hart's voice, laced with panic. Asleel patrols are sweeping hard. We're out of time. Reyes wiped sweat and soot from his brow, scanning the ruined street ahead. The air reeked of burning plastic and ozone, the acrid scent biting at his lungs. Beyond the wreckage, he spotted movement. Civilians huddled in the remains of a collapsed diner, their wide eyes reflecting fear and desperation. A family by the look of it. "They're sitting ducks," Reyes muttered, tightening his grip on his weapon, a jury-rigged plasma rifle salvage from an alien scout. It hummed faintly, a Frankenstein's monster of human ingenuity and alien tech. "We move now? Cover fire on my mark." His squad of 4 emerged from the shadows, their makeshift armor dented and scorched. Each bore the same look, exhaustion tempered by unyielding determination. "Mark!" Reyes shouted. The team unleashed a torrent of firepower, a cacophony of sharp bursts and sizzling plasma bolts. The Asleel patrol, sleek, insectoid figures with segmented armor and glowing, predatory eyes, pivoted toward the assault, their movements unervingly fluid. "Keep them off us," Reyes ordered, sprinting across the rubble-strewn street. His boots crunched glass and debris as he reached the diner, dropping to one knee beside the cowering family. "You're safe now," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Follow my lead." A child, no older than 6, clung to his mother's leg, tears streaking his soot-covered face. Reyes met the boy's gaze, offering a small, reassuring smile. "We'll get you out of this." Behind them, an alien shriek split the air. One of the Asleel fell, its armored body crashing onto the pavement, but 2 more closed in, their sleek weapons charging with lethal energy. "Reyes, we got company!" Harth yelled. "I see it." Reyes pressed the comm button on his wrist. "Whitaker, tell me you've got eyes." A crackling pause. Then, "Got you, Reyes." Dr. Lena Whitaker's voice was calm, but urgent. "Drone overhead. Pinging you coordinates for a weak point in their formation. Move now, or we're toast." "Copy that," Reyes replied. He turned to the family. "Stay close. Move when I move." They darted through the maze of debris, the civilians stumbling but following his lead. Plasma bolts hissed past, melting chunks of asphalt and metal. One seared close enough for Reyes to feel its heat on his cheek. "Go, go," he urged, ushering them toward an abandoned subway entrance. His team provided suppressing fire, their shots punching through alien carapaces with practiced precision. The family descended the stairs just as an Asleel warrior charged. Reyes spun, raising his rifle, but the alien was fast, too fast. It lunged, its razor-sharp limbs arcing toward him. A sharp crack echoed through the air. The Asleel jerked, a smoking hole through its skull, and collapsed. Reyes turned to see Whitaker, standing atop a nearby overpass with a sniper rifle slung over her shoulder. She gave a quick nod, her expression grim. "Not bad for a scientist," Reyes called, half smiling despite himself. Whitaker's voice crackled back through the comms. "Get those people to safety. We got bigger problems." Minutes later, Reyes and his squad regrouped in the dimly lit subway tunnel, the family huddled nearby. Whitaker arrived, her boots echoing against the concrete as she approached with a datapad clutched in her hands. "I hacked into one of their recon drones," she said, her words clipped. "The Asleel aren't just here for conquest. They're targeting Earth's ecosystems, oceans, forests, even the atmosphere." Reyes frowned, wiping grime from his face. "Terraforming? Worse." Whitaker adjusted her glasses, the light from the datapad illuminating her tired features. They're destabilizing the planet, using its own biodiversity against it. Why? Hearth asked, incredulous. What's the point of wrecking the place they want to take over? They don't care about the long game, Whitaker replied. They strip planets for resources, then move on. To them, we're collateral damage. Reyes stared at the datapad, its display showing an ominous pulsating signal. What's this? The disruptor, Whitaker said grimly. If they activate it, we lose everything. Atmosphere, water, everything that makes Earth livable. Silence fell over the group. The distant rumble of explosions above ground filled the void. Reyes straightened, his jaw set. Then we take it out? Whitaker gave him a sharp look. It's suicide. They've got the tech, the numbers. They don't have the heart, Reyes interrupted. His voice was firm, resolute. We've survived worse. We'll survive this. The faintest smile tugged at Whitaker's lips. You're insane. Reyes allowed himself a small chuckle. Probably. But let's make sure they regret ever coming here. The chapter ends as Reyes glances back at the family, their frightened faces reminding him of what's at stake. He tightens his grip on his weapon and turns to his team. Let's show them what Earth is made of. Chapter 2. The air in the abandoned subway tunnel was heavy with tension. Somewhere above, the city crumbled under the relentless assault of the Asleel. Captain Daniel Reyes stood at the center of his makeshift squad, his sharp gaze darting between the glowing map on Dr. Whitaker's datapad and the worried faces of his team. The disruptor's here, Whitaker said, pointing to a dense cluster of buildings on the map. Looks like they've fortified it inside their forward operations base. Half a kilometer underground. Reyes frowned, his jaw tightening. What's guarding it? Whitaker swiped the display, revealing a blurry image captured by the stolen recon drone. Heavily armored sentries, automated turrets, and something bigger. Their energy signatures don't match any known Asleel tech. That's just great, muttered Hearth, leaning against a wall. His plasma rifle hung loose in his grip. We barely made it out alive topside, and now we're supposed to storm a fortress? Reyes shot him a sharp look. If we don't, there won't be a topside left to save. The corporal sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I know. Just needed to say it out loud. Before Reyes could respond, a faint tremor rippled through the tunnel. Dust trickled from the ceiling, and the distant whine of alien engines grew louder. They're scanning the lower levels, Whitaker said, her voice tight. They know someone's down here. Time's up then. Reyes slung his rifle over his shoulder, turning to the group. We move in pairs. Whitaker, you're with me. Hearth, you and Decker take the rear and cover our tracks. We make it to the base. We improvise from there. The squad nodded, though unease flickered in their eyes. Reyes felt it too, the weight of impossible odds pressing against his chest. But he pushed it aside. Let's move. The tunnel stretched endlessly, twisting like veins beneath the ravaged city. The team moved in silence, their steps muffled on the gritty concrete. The only sounds were the faint hum of their equipment and the distant thuds of explosions above. Reyes glanced back at Whitaker, who clutched her datapad tightly. Her face was pale but determined. You doing okay? He asked quietly. She gave a terse nod. I've been shot at more in the last 24 hours than in my entire life, but I'll manage. Reyes chuckled softly. Stick with me, document. We'll make it through this. Ahead, Decker raised a hand, signaling a stop. The group froze, weapons raised. A faint, guttural clicking echoed from the darkness ahead, growing louder with each passing second. Contact, Hearth whispered, his voice barely audible. A beam of pale light swept through the tunnel, illuminating a hulking Asleel scout. Its segmented limbs moved with eerie precision, its carapace shimmering like liquid metal. Behind it, smaller drones skittered along the walls, their spindly legs clicking against the concrete. Take the big one down first, Reyes ordered, his voice low but firm. Go loud on my mark. The scout turned, its glowing eyes locking onto their position. Mark! The tunnel erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness, striking the scout's armor and sending fragments flying. The smaller drones darted forward, their sharp limbs slashing through the air. Reyes fired in controlled bursts, each shot aimed to disable. "Whitaker, stay behind me!" The scientist ducked as a drone lunged at her, only to be intercepted by Hearth's well-aimed shot. It screeched, collapsing into a smoking heap. The scout roared, its arm morphing into a glowing cannon. It fired, the blast narrowly missing Decker and scorching a crater into the wall. "Hit its joints!" Reyes shouted, aiming for the creature's legs. His shots found their mark, and the scout staggered, its movements jerky and unbalanced. "Down!" Hearth yelled, landing the final blow. The scout collapsed, its glowing eyes dimming as it crumpled to the floor. The squad stood amidst the carnage, breathing heavily. "Everyone intact?" Reyes asked, scanning his team. A chorus of weary affirmations followed. Whitaker knelt beside the fallen scout, her datapad scanning its remains. "This is new tech," she murmured, her brow furrowing. "More advanced than anything we've seen from the Asleel before. They're adapting. Then we'll adapt faster," Reyes said, his tone resolute. "Let's move before reinforcements show up." The tunnel widened into a cavernous chamber, its walls lined with alien machinery that pulsed with a sickly green light. At its center stood a massive elevator, its platform surrounded by glowing energy fields. "That's our ride," Reyes said, motioning for the team to spread out. Whitaker tapped furiously on her datapad, her eyes scanning the alien script. "I can disable the fields, but it'll take a minute." "You've got 30 seconds," Reyes replied, positioning himself near the elevator controls. As Whitaker worked, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The squad tensed, weapons ready. "They're coming," Hearth warned. From the far end of the chamber, another Asleel patrol emerged. 2 scouts flanking a towering figure that bristled with weapons. Its hulking frame glowed faintly, radiating an aura of power. "Hold them off!" Reyes shouted, opening fire. The chapter ends in a maelstrom of gunfire and alien screeches, with Whitaker desperately trying to disable the energy fields as the squad fights to hold the line. The towering Asleel lets out a bone-rattling roar, charging forward as Reyes locks eyes with it, determination burning in his gaze. "Hold the line!" Chapter 3. The elevator shuddered violently as it descended, its ancient mechanisms groaning under the strain. Every flicker of the dim, green alien light felt like a warning. Captain Reyes tightened his grip on his rifle, his eyes scanning the shifting shadows of the shaft walls. "Everyone check your gear," he ordered, his voice steady despite the tension coiled in his chest. Hearth tapped his rifle with a grim smile. "Locked and loaded, Cap. Let's just hope this thing doesn't drop us into a grinder." Whitaker, crouched by the elevator console, didn't look up. "If it does, I've got worse news. Whatever's powering this platform, it's not stable. The energy readings are spiking." "How bad?" Reyes asked. "Let's just say if we're still on it when it hits 0, there won't be enough of us left to send home." Reyes gave a curt nod. "Then we won't be." The elevator clanked to a halt, the doors grinding open to reveal a vast subterranean chamber. The air was stifling, thick with an acrid, metallic scent. Green light poured from crystalline veins embedded in the walls, illuminating rows of alien machinery. And standing between them and the disruptor was an Asleel warbeast. The creature dwarfed the scout units they'd faced earlier, its body a grotesque amalgamation of organic muscle and mechanical enhancements. Twin cannons jutted from its shoulders, glowing with the ominous hum of charging plasma. "Spread out," Reyes barked as the warbeast let out an ear-splitting roar, shaking the chamber. The team scattered, finding cover behind jagged alien consoles and debris. The beast fired, a plasma bolt obliterating the pillar where Hearth had been crouched seconds before. "Eyes on weak points," Reyes shouted, aiming for the joints where organic flesh met machine. His shot sparked against the creature's armor, leaving only scorch marks. Hearth, circling wide, yelled, "This thing's built like a tank." "Every tank's got a weak spot," Reyes replied, his tone grim. Whitaker crouched behind a console, her datapad clutched tightly in one hand as she frantically analyzed the disruptor's energy readings. The warbeast's heavy footfalls reverberated through the chamber, each step a reminder of their dwindling time. "Captain, I can overload the disruptor remotely, but I need access to its core," she called out. "Which is where?" Reyes asked, firing a burst at the beast's face to draw its attention away from Hearth. Whitaker pointed to a raised platform at the far end of the chamber, surrounded by a shimmering force field. "Figures," Reyes muttered. "Hearth, Decker, lay down suppressive fire. I'll cover Whitaker while she moves in." "Roger that," Decker yelled, unleashing a hail of plasma bolts that peppered the warbeast's flank. The creature turned, its cannons swiveling to target the source of the attack. Reyes seized the moment, motioning for Whitaker to follow. "Stay low and stay close," he instructed, leading her through the maze of consoles and debris. The beast roared, swiping at the rubble with one massive arm. Its claws sent shards of alien metal flying, one of them grazing Reyes's shoulder. He winced but kept moving, his focus unshaken. "Decker, hit its back legs," Hearth yelled, drawing the warbeast's attention with a series of precise shots to its exposed joints. Decker flanked left, his heavy rifle spitting plasma bolts that seared through the creature's outer plating. Sparks flew, and the beast staggered, one leg buckling slightly. "It's working," Hearth shouted triumphantly. "Don't celebrate yet," Reyes snapped, pulling Whitaker into cover as the beast lashed out wildly. Whitaker reached the disruptor platform, her hands trembling as she connected her datapad to the alien terminal. The interface flared to life, its symbols alien, yet strangely intuitive under her trained eye. "I've got a lock," she said, her voice tinged with both fear and determination. "Just keep that thing off me for 2 minutes." Reyes turned back to the fight, his heart pounding. 2 minutes is a long time down here, Doc." The warbeast, enraged by the attacks on its legs, turned its full attention to Hearth and Decker. It charged, the ground trembling under its weight. "Move!" Reyes shouted, firing at the creature's head to buy his teammates time. Hearth dove behind a console as the warbeast crashed into it, its claws tearing through the alien metal like paper. "Captain, we can't keep this up," Decker called, panting. "Hold the line," Reyes bellowed, his voice filled with raw determination. "We don't leave until Whitaker's done." The disruptor's hum grew louder, its crystalline structure pulsating erratically. Whitaker's fingers flew across her datapad, sweat dripping down her face. "Captain, the overload is almost ready, but we've got a problem," she said. "What now?" Reyes asked, not taking his eyes off the warbeast. "When this thing blows, it's going to take the entire chamber with it." Reyes's jaw tightened. "Then we'll make sure we're not here when it does." "How long?" 30 seconds. "Team, fall back to the elevator," Reyes ordered. Hearth and Decker broke into a sprint, firing over their shoulders as the warbeast roared and pursued them. Reyes waited until Whitaker unplugged her datapad before grabbing her arm and pulling her towards the exit. The warbeast charged, its cannons firing wildly as it closed the distance. Reyes skidded to a halt, turning to face the creature. "Go," he shouted to Whitaker, raising his rifle. "But, go." Whitaker hesitated for a split second before running after the others. Reyes fired, his shots aimed at the beast's damaged leg. It stumbled, buying precious seconds. The disruptor emitted a high-pitched whine, its crystalline structure fracturing as energy began to surge uncontrollably. "Reyes, move!" Hart's voice echoed from the elevator. With one last glance at the warbeast, Reyes turned and sprinted. The chamber shook violently as the disruptor reached critical mass. The chapter ends with the team diving into the elevator just as a blinding explosion consumes the chamber, the fate of the warbeast, and Reyes's desperate gamble, left uncertain. Chapter 4. The elevator rocketed upward, shuddering with the force of the blast below. Dust and alien debris rained down, the tremors threatening to rattle the team apart. Reyes leaned against the wall, clutching his ribs. Every breath was a struggle, but he refused to let it slow him. "Status check," he barked, his voice hoarse. "I'm good," Whitaker replied, though her shaking hands betrayed the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Decker here. Took a few hits, but I'm standing," came the gruff response. Hearth slumped against the opposite wall, his helmet dented. "Still prettier than you, Cap, barely." Reyes allowed himself a brief smirk. "Glad to hear it. We're not done yet." The elevator groaned as it slowed, the doors opening to reveal the hangar where the mission had begun. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the distant hum of alien machinery. Their extraction shuttle sat untouched across the bay, but the air felt wrong, charged with a static that made the hair on Reyes's neck stand on end. "Something's waiting for us," Whitaker whispered, gripping her datapad like a lifeline. Reyes nodded, his instincts screaming the same warning. "Stay sharp. We get to that shuttle, no detours." They stepped into the hangar, their boots crunching against the strange crystalline floor. The shadows felt alive, shifting with an almost sentient menace. "Captain," Decker whispered, his rifle raised. "We've got movement." 10 o'clock. Reyes turned just in time to see a figure step into the light. It was an Asleel, but unlike any they'd encountered before. Its armor was sleek and reflective, pulsing faintly with an unnatural green glow. Its 4 arms each held a weapon, and its eyes burned with intelligence and hatred. "You've meddled with forces beyond your understanding," it said, its voice a guttural snarl that reverberated through the hangar. "And you will pay for your insolence." The creature raised one of its arms, firing a searing bolt of plasma. The team scattered, diving behind crates and machinery as the battle began. "Hearth, flank right," Reyes ordered, returning fire. His rounds sparked uselessly against the Asleel's armor, but he kept shooting, trying to buy time. Whitaker ducked behind a console, her fingers flying over her datapad. "I can jam its targeting systems, but I need a clear signal." "Hurry it up, Doc," Hearth yelled as he dodged another plasma blast, his own shots ricocheting harmlessly off the alien's defenses. Reyes gritted his teeth, frustration mounting. This wasn't a fight they could win conventionally. He needed an edge and fast. His eyes darted around the hangar, searching for something, anything, that could turn the tide. Then he saw it. "Decker, Hearth, keep it busy," Reyes called out as he sprinted toward a stack of fuel cells near the center of the hangar. "Busy? Sure thing, Cap," Decker shouted, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he launched a grenade that exploded harmlessly against the Asleel's shield. The alien turned its attention to Reyes, its eyes narrowing. "Futile," it hissed, firing another bolt. Reyes dove behind the fuel cells just as the plasma hit, the explosion throwing him several feet. Pain shot through his body, but he forced himself up, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "Reyes!" Whitaker screamed, her voice a mix of panic and fury. "I'm fine," he lied, dragging himself to his knees. "Just get that signal up." The Asleel advanced, its steps deliberate, predatory. "Your defiance amuses me, human," it sneered. "But it ends now." Before it could fire again, a brilliant burst of light filled the hangar. Whitaker stood beside the console, her datapad emitting a high-pitched whine. "Targeting systems offline," she shouted. The Asleel staggered, its weapons faltering as it tried to recalibrate. Hearth and Decker seized the opportunity, their combined fire chipping away at its shield. Reyes saw his chance. Ignoring the pain, he grabbed a fuel cell and primed its manual detonation. "Everyone to the shuttle," he yelled, running straight toward the Asleel. The alien recovered quickly, its shields flaring back to life as it turned toward Reyes. "You cannot defeat me," it said, its tone almost pitying. "Maybe not," Reyes replied, a grim smile on his face. "But I don't have to." With a final burst of strength, he hurled the fuel cell at the alien and dove to the ground. The explosion was deafening, a fiery bloom that engulfed the Asleel in a blinding inferno. The team barely made it to the shuttle, the force of the blast rocking the entire hangar. Hearth yanked Reyes aboard just as the doors slammed shut, and Whitaker punched the controls, launching them into the void. Silence filled the cabin as they watched the alien station shrink behind them, its core destabilizing from the chain reaction Reyes had triggered. "Cap," Decker said, breaking the quiet. "That was insane." Reyes leaned back in his seat, exhaustion washing over him. Worked, didn't it? Whitaker turned from her console, her face pale but determined. You nearly got yourself killed. Again. Reyes shrugged, a faint grin tugging at his lips. Just doing my job? As the station erupted in a final, brilliant explosion, the team sat in silence, the weight of their victory sinking in. They had survived. They had won. But deep down, Reyes knew this was just the beginning.